All right, Steve here. We're going to do a deep dive, a technical audit, if you will, on one of the biggest self-inflicted wounds in American financial history. Now, this isn't just a war story. It's about what happens when the people in charge forget to check the plumbing, the financial plumbing of a nation.
So, here's the question, and it's a brutal one. How do you fight a superpower when you've got an empty wallet? I mean, how does a young country even think about taking on the world's biggest bully after you've just deliberately ripped out your own financial engine? You know it's a setup for absolute disaster.
Our story kicks off back in 1811. Picture this, the United States government, it makes this unbelievably reckless decision. See, there is this deep distrust of bankers, sound familiar? And the politicians in Washington just let the charter for the first bank of the United States expire, gone. It's like they fired their one and only national banker right before a bar fight.
And would you look at the timing on this? I mean, it's just catastrophic. A year, just 12 months after they tore down their central financial institution, what happens? The United States declares war on Great Britain. You couldn't write it. The timing couldn't possibly be worse, a total unforced error and one for the history books.
And what a mismatch this was. You just have to see it. On one side, you've got the British Empire, a true financial juggernaut. On the other, the U.S. Treasury, bankless, forced to depend on this patchwork of tiny, unstable state banks. It's like deciding to get in the ring with a heavyweight champ right after you've closed your only bank account and cut up all your credit cards. I mean, there was no efficient way to get money to the troops. It was a joke. They were trying to fight a 19th century war with what, 17th century accounting? No way.
So, fast forward to 1814. That one bad call? Well, it wasn't just a mistake anymore. It had spiraled into a full-blown crisis. The British had set up a blockade, and it was choking off the government's main source of cash, import taxes. The country was going broke, and I mean fast.
So the Treasury gets desperate, real desperate. They try to float $16 million in war bonds to keep the fight going. And the public's response? Crickets. Almost total silence. They only sold a tiny fraction of it. And you gotta ask why, right? It's simple. Nobody, and I mean nobody, believed the government would even be around to pay them back. Confidence was at absolute zero.
And then came the final nail in the coffin. August 1814. The British just march right into Washington, D.C. and burn the White House to the ground. Now, from my perspective, from a trader's perspective, that wasn't just some military defeat. No, that was a signal to the entire world that the United States government was insolvent. It was a classic credit event.
Right, so what is a credit event? It's the moment that triggers a default. It's the sign that you're done. So when the Capitol burned, that was the market saying game over. It was definitive proof that the U.S. Treasury was, for all intents and purposes, bankrupt. No credit, no cash, and absolutely no way to keep fighting a war.
Now here's where the story takes a turn. The war didn't end because America found a new general or a new army. No, it ended because they found a banker. With the whole country right on the verge of total collapse, one guy, one single individual, steps out of the shadows.
His name was Stephen Girard. You're going to want to remember that name. He wasn't a politician, wasn't a general. He was a merchant, and he was about to place the single biggest bet of his entire life.
So who was this guy, Stephen Girard? Well, he was a French immigrant, settled in Philadelphia, made his fortune in shipping and banking. And he didn't just do well for himself. He became the wealthiest man in America. Get this, his personal fortune was bigger than the entire U.S. Treasury. He was the ultimate outsider, and he saw a massive opportunity where everybody else just saw ruin.
So what did he do? It was incredible. You remember that $16 million government bond sale that failed so spectacularly? Well, Girard just steps in and buys almost the whole thing, with his own cash. He bet his entire fortune on one thing, that America wouldn't default. He basically underwrote the rest of the war himself. This was, without a doubt, one of the greatest value trades in history. Buying something everyone believed was completely worthless. And yeah, he didn't just save the country's credit, he made an absolute killing when the war was over and those bonds were paid back at full price.
So what's the lesson here? What do we take away from all this? Because this isn't just some dusty old history story, no. From the actual ashes of the White House, the United States learned a very hard lesson, one that was written in financial fire.
After that, the logic was just undeniable. It became crystal clear. The crisis proved, beyond any doubt, that you cannot run a modern economy, let alone fight a modern war, without a stable, central financial system. So what did they do? Just 2 years after the war, Congress finally came to its senses, reversed that reckless decision, and chartered the Second Bank of the United States. It gave the country the stability it was practically begging for.
And here it is. Here's the direct line to our world today. That institution, the Second Bank, born out of total disaster, that was the direct ancestor, the grandfather, if you will, of today's Federal Reserve. You could say its DNA was coded during that crisis. And its legacy? Well, that's something we still watch like a hawk, every single day, right up to today, Saturday, March 14th, 2026.
So it all leaves us with this one question, doesn't it? The War of 1812. It's a hell of a reminder that this complex plumbing of our financial system, that's what keeps the entire house standing. And history shows us, time and again, that when we get arrogant, when we get careless enough to ignore it, well, the whole thing can burn right down to the ground. This is Steve. Watch the plumbing. I'll see you at the open.